Welcome to Cardboard Conjecture. We're a podcast about board games where we have opinions and conclusions formed on the basis of incomplete information. This episode of Cardboard Conjecture is brought to you by these great Saskatoon businesses: Amazing Stories Comics on 8th Street, Dragon's Den Games on 8th Street, and Breakout Escape Rooms on Faithful Avenue. Hey there, I'm Norm, and this is the Cardboard Conjecture podcast. And on this episode, I'm going to talk about some games of late. I will have a look at what's trending, what's new, and what's on the crowdfunding scene. And it's time for some reviews, and I'm going to do a 4-review card game series of Canvas, Anomia, Cockroach Poker, and Point Salad. Cardboard Conjecture is proudly sponsored by Amazing Stories Comics on 8th Street in Saskatoon. They are the winner of the Joe Shuster Award for Best Comic Book Store in Canada, and they were also nominated in 2016 for the U.S. Eisner Spirit of Comics Retailer Award presented at Comic-Con. Amazing Stories' amazing collection of comic books, board games, puzzles, and collectibles can be found in their store or on their new online website. Hey, let's get right to it. It's time for some games of late. And had the opportunity on Gamers Garage Night, our regular weekly board game session with Jeff from Amazing Stories Comics and Dave and Jordan from Board on the Air. Regular contributors to What You've Been Playing Wednesday. Have a listen. And it was Jordan's pick, and he picked Champions of Hera, and designed by Walter Barber, Ian Van Nest, and Andrew Zimmerman, and published by Greenbrier Games. And this was, Jeff had mentioned this one a couple years ago, and because it came out in, let's see here, 2018. And he was like, he had an engaged dialogue of, you know, what he thought of the game. And let's just kind of explain it quickly. You are basically a bunch of magic users, kind of rift jumpers kind of thing. And the game board are hex patterns of a hex pattern inside, like 9 hexes within a cardboard of a hex pattern, because there's all of these areas, and these basically hex pattern areas represent spheres, and there's 6 spheres and 1 dojo in the middle. And what it is, you can play cooperative campaign, but we played competitive. And it was a matter of kind of a race to get 3 tracks to the top. And those 3 tracks represent, you know, the kind of mana power, I guess. And that's what you're trying to collect as you're doing, let's say, closing rifts or fighting monsters or encountering events. If you can meet these challenges, then you up these tracks. And also, you may influence, the tracks of other people. Because if you go to attack them and reduce their hit points to 0, because there's another track, hit points, and then there's another status track, which is kind of like a glory, esteem kind of, you know, another track, a Euro thing, right? But if you reduce the person to 0 and, you know, kill them, they're not out of the game. They just go back to the dojo. They have to, I think the penalty is remove 2 of their specialty items from those 3 tracks that you're trying to collect. You know, kind of give them a hit in this race to the top. And how you do it, now this is the really cool part, is what I enjoyed about it, is everybody has their own kind of unique deck to their unique character. And I got to say right out of the gates, I was frustrated because it took me, 3/4 of the game to figure out how this guy was working, because I was watching everybody else do their thing and they're doing some crazy stuff, but mine was not as crazy. But once I found out how it worked properly, it was a very efficient character, and in regards to movement and being able to get places where it needs to be rather than, tough and brawny. So let's rewind. I start out with these standard, I think it's 5 cards, and it's very cool because there's a top and a bottom on this. And how it works is that when it's in your hand, you play it to the table and play the action on the card. And they're very cool, specific to the theme to the character that you're playing. Now, how this also, I think it's on your turn, you get to do 3 actions. Yeah. And so another action is that you can take the card off the board. And that is the reverse, like the underside, right? Because the card's vertically split half and half, and there's a top and bottom. And so it's, I think it's called off the board. And I was so dialed into how clever that was in regards to how you could play your hand and, repeat some actions and just work on a couple card cycles. What also happens is on your 3 tracks that I had mentioned, the blue, green, and the yellow, I can't remember what the theme names are, but it's a Euro. There are thresholds. The track goes from 0 to 10, and at the threshold of 5, you get to, I didn't talk about it because now I'm going to, there's a side deck that when you hit certain achievement points, you get, of a certain color, you get to go into your source deck and select between, like, let's say I ring the bell at 5 on the green track. Well, there's 2 green cards in there, and I can decide, okay, which one is going into my hand, okay? And at the 10 interval, you get to activate one of your second card of that area. So you can kind of thicken up your deck and get those good cards, because once those cards come in, of course, they're more powerful and have a more dynamic synergy with the other cards if you can get them into your hand. So yeah, like I said, this was a race, and how it finished out, and I was frustrated until I figured it out, because and this is all on me, I was looking at it as if it was kind of like a players on a map, right? A kind of army skirmish game, but it wasn't. It was a more dynamic, asymmetrical character race. And once I figured that out, bottom line, at the end of it all, I won, but there will be an asterisk beside it, because what's the term called? Yeah, Dave participated in some king making. But here's the funny part, because Jordan, who it was his pick and he brought the game to the table, had said also, this is one of those games that whoever's in the lead, or whoever's got really high numbers on their tracks, everybody kind of chips away at them. Well, guess who was leading the whole game? It was Jordan. So once this happened, there was some, how shall I say, some scorn looking. But of course the answer was, well, that's what you said we should do. Okay. So, I mean, I would be upset too, of course. But yeah, to come back to it, I'd totally play this game again. It was a fun game. That was wrapping it up again. Where's that title? Champions of Hera. Came out 2018, designed by Walter Barber, Ian Van Nest, Andrew Zimmerman, and published by Greenbrier Games. This episode of Cardboard Conjecture is proudly sponsored by Dragon's Den Games, located in the Louis VIII Mall on 8th Street in Saskatoon. Swing by Dragon's Den Games and let Darren, Al, and the awesome staff help you out in search for great board games, role-playing games, miniature systems, and all of the related accessories. Be a part of their gaming communities that have scheduled events in their great gaming area. Dragon's Den Games, Louis VIII Mall on 8th Street in Saskatoon. One quick other game I want to talk about is it was one of those things where I'm at Amazing Stories, I'm looking at the new games, and this kind of popped at me. I had never seen it before, never heard of it, but for some reason my brain went, That's interesting. And it's called Small Railroad Empires. And before I get into it, it's Arcona Games is the publisher, and this specific game is designed by Milan Tasservsky. I hope I said that properly. My apologies if I didn't. And it's a take on the Tiny Epic games, right? How the design methodology of Tiny Epic is, it's got to fit in this dimension box because that's their set, right? And they do a great job at it. They're very innovative and creative on how they can compress such a large footprint game in a small box. Well, the Small Empires kind of series is doing the same thing. In this case, Small Railroad Empires is a kind of 18xx game where it's a networking, pickup and delivery, trains, transportation, that whole thing. And I've played this solo a couple times, and I'm gonna give it a little bit more work, right? Because I think there's something cool there. And they, as I mentioned before, they also have other games that are developing slowly in this series. And one is Small Star Empires and Small Samurai Empires. So, color me curious. I want to have a deeper look. And I think the Small Star Empires already has an expansion. Let's have a quick look here. I believe that's an expansion. Galactic Warlords, Battle for Dominion. That looks like a different game. So, yeah, this is a company that I'm going to pay a little more attention to. So, yeah, like I said, it's Small Railroad Empires. It's like a hex map that you put together of terrain, and it's your pickup and delivery, set collecting to a certain point because you have engine cards, and it's clever how they came up with it and tightened it up. Now, it doesn't have that same depth that an 18xx game that is 8 hours long would have. No, of course not. But I think it's a righteous flavor. So there you go. I'm very curious on checking out the other games. I'm gonna have to do some homework, which means I'm gonna go buy them somewhere. Hi. If you like the content we're creating and the podcast episodes we're producing, please leave a happy rating on the podcast platform that you use. This would be such a great gift and would also help others find our podcast when they search for board game podcasts. And if you have the time, check out our new YouTube channel where we have new content every few days. Just search Cardboard Conjecture on YouTube. Thanks, eh? All right, let's get going to see what is trending, new, and on the crowdfunding scene. So the first thing I want to talk about, which is trending, and I'm glad it's trending because it's from Leader Games, and it's a theme that I love, which is space. And so I'm talking about ARCS 2023, plays 3 to 4 players. See, for me, like the solo, but I'm still going to talk about it because I want to learn about it right now. It goes 60 to 90 minutes, and it is designed by Cole Worley. And if you know Cole Worley, Root and the Pax Pamir, and the right away I'm like, John Company. Okay, there you go. So quite not heavy, but deep and wide in regards to their thematic content and the mechanisms and just play style, right? So let's get into some description here. In ARCS, 3 to 4 players guide their factions through a fast-playing space opera that unfolds over a trio of 60 to 90 minutes sessions. The game opens in the final days of a decaying empire. Players take the role of the last regents of a once proud state that stretched to the farthest worlds of the reach. Faced with an encroaching blight that threatens the outer planets, players must balance the integrity of their homelands with their own ambitions. Arcs uses an innovative card-driven action system that is easy to learn and highly interactive. Players are given hands of action cards each turn and must balance their desire to control the game's tempo against their own interests. Should you use the initiative to seize control of a critical new technology or reposition your fleets for a coming engagement? When players do trade blows, the battles are resolved in a snap using a simple dice system. However, combat's interaction with the large action system offers players a wide range of tactical options, from multi-turn sieges to daring raids and dramatic escapes. Players begin the game in roughly symmetrical positions, which helps new players learn the core systems quickly. However, their choices will soon cause their paths to diverge. Unearthing an ancient technology might make the restoration of the empire possible. A chance discovery on a blighted world might lead a player to abandon their wealth and begin a voyage across the reach to right an ancient wrong. Each choice will advance the game's story and form part of an emergent, player-driven campaign. Many of these choices are resolved in a special intermission between games. During this phase, new rules modules are activated and players are introduced to new capabilities and objectives. Despite their similar starting positions, by the end of the campaign, players might control factions as varied as any in Root or Vast. Players will also use the intermission to spend their hard-earned power to maintain their fleets and wealth, as well as invest in new improvements that may aid them in the coming age. The campaign system of Arcs provides players with a huge number of possible game situations and hundreds of possible campaigns. In addition, Arcs also includes an abridged 2-session campaign and a single-session mode. Wow. As I'm reading it in my head, I'm thinking, oh yeah, I'll be picking this thing up. It talks about, as far as mechanisms goes, action points, area movement. There seems to be like a battle card-driven system, dice rolling. So I'm in, because another criteria that checked off the box here is the artist for this is Kyle Farron of Root fame. And so visually pleasing, big check off that box. As far as the an intelligent game system, Cole Worley, check off that box. And Leader Games, I think, are such a solid company in regards to like having that groove that they're in right now, and being good at it, right? And they're very good at this idea of asymmetry, card-driven concepts. It's okay. So it's trending for a reason, because I'm all about it. Guide your faction through a fast-playing space opera, it says. Wonderful. I am in for that, hands down. And now let's look at what's new, at least to the market. Maybe not to our, but yeah, I'm talking big Canadian joke. We'll see that in about a month or two. No. I'm quite interested in this new game called Dice Realms. And the tagline is expand, upgrade, and feed your realm of customizable dice. Beware, winter is coming. Yeah, welcome to Saskatchewan, eh? It's designed by Thomas Lehman of Race for the Galaxy fame and published by Rio Grande Games. Now, I've heard people talk about this. I have no idea what it is about. So, let's have a quick description. So in Dice Realms, players vie to improve and expand their realms, represented by customizable dice with faces that can be popped out and upgraded for better ones. Yay! I'm all about that. Each game is different, as during setup, players draw 5 tiles from a bag of 35 to determine which extra dice faces will be available beyond the 5 standard lines of faces. Lands or victory points, farming grain, commerce coins, settlement defense, and progress upgrades. Each player begins with 2 identical dice and can gain more dice during play, in addition to upgrading their standard dice. Play is mostly simultaneous. To begin, players roll their dice, with one player rolling the fate die, which affects all players. If winter appears on the fate die, players must pay 1 grain for each die they own or take a 2-point misery chip for each grain they lack. Yay, that's very Martin Wallace of you. Players may then reroll one of the die for free and use any reroll or set a die tokens that allow you to choose the die face result that they have previously invested in future for further control. I could carry on. There's a bit more. So far, this to me sounds like all of the cool stuff that I like about the kind of roll and write games, but this way you get to customize the dice that you're rolling for your. I am all about that. The variability, big fan of the variability, and now in this case, because I always joke that dice hate me, there's no ones in this, so maybe this is the game for me. I'm gonna have to go check that out. Once again, that's Dice Realms, designed by Thomas Lehman and published by Rio Grande Games. I'm curious, which means I'm probably going to go buy it. Let's have a quick look at the crowdfunding scene before we get to some reviews. And this, you know what? I want to talk about this again. I talked about this before. I think it was in one of our cool cardboard cohort discussions. But this one is Resist. Lead a band of resistance fighters as they try to take back their homeland. And it is designed by Trevor Benjamin, Roger Tankersley, and David Thompson, and published by Salt and Pepper Games. And I had the opportunity to have a great chat with David Thompson, and we talked about this. And instead of me kind of blathering, I'll give you the intro description tag and then go from there. So, Spain, 1936, General Franco and his troops advanced through the territories of Spain, giving way to a long period of civil war and repression. After the Spanish Civil War, a group of loyalists to the Republic continued the armed struggle, forming resistance groups better known as Maquis. Hidden in the mountains, these men and women risked their lives to defend the ideals of democracy and freedom. Fighting against them were the army of Franco, the Civil Guard, and the armed police, but the Maquis perfected their guerrilla warfare in France during the Second World War and were determined to take back their homeland. In the head of each Maquis resonates the echo of the desire of many compatriots. Resist. The first thing that really appealed to me is it's a solo game. One player. That's what I said. One player. The art looks great. My first glance at this, it drives me to the art style of that era where there's kind of muted colors and not a very wide palette of depths of colors, but very kind of generalized patterns of colors. I don't know if that makes sense, but that kind of World War II, 30s, 40s era style kind of newspaper art. I think that maybe for the 3 people that understand what I'm talking about, they're thinking, yeah, you're absolutely right. So if you want to hear us get into deep, I would say go back and check out the Designer Series episode with David Thompson, and we kind of get in really cool on how this happened and how it came to be. But I'm a big fan of how he and Trevor Benjamin have been using their card-driven systems with the Undaunted series of games. So big fan. Can't wait to see it hit the shelves. I will own a copy of this for sure. I'm making space on my shelf for it right now. This episode is supported by the incredible team at Breakout Escape and Board Game Lounge here in Saskatoon. Using industry-leading technology, Breakout Escape Rooms are all 100% uniquely designed by the team to ensure their patrons have maximum fun while staying safe. As well, they are a fully licensed board game lounge with over 400 titles to select from to ensure fun for every gamer, new and experienced. Be sure to check them out at breakoutsask.com. At Breakout Escapes and Board Game Lounge, they believe that life is more fun when you play games. And welcome back. This is Cardboard Conjecture. I'm your host, Norm, and we're going into some reviews. And I'd like to start the review process with what a gorgeous game. A game called Canvas, which came out in 2021, designed by Jeff Chin and Andrew Nerge, and it's published by Road to Infamy Games. And this is one of those games where I must mention the artist, and hopefully I can pronounce it properly, Luan Huynh. I'm so sorry if I completely, messed it up. But I will not mess up the fact that this art is gorgeous. Every element has the same attention to detail and attention to it being a unique item, that when you put all of these together, it's just such gorgeous depth and connectivity, right? But we'll get that. I'm already stepping into opinions. This is going to be really short. No. So let's get through this process of what I like to do for the review format, and get those game details out of the way. Now let's get to the overview and the nuts and bolts of the game. And I always like to read the description provided by the publisher, because they're the ones that know this game in depth. So here we go. In Canvas, you play as a painter competing in an art competition. Players will collect art cards, layering 3 of them together to create their own unique painting. Each card contains a piece of artwork as well as a set of icons used during scoring. Icons will be revealed or hidden based on the way players choose to lay the cards, making for an exciting puzzle and excruciating too. Paintings are scored based on a set of scoring cards, which will change each game. Once players have created and scored 3 paintings, the game ends. On your turn, you may take an art card or make a painting. Art cards are selected from a row of cards in the center of play. Each of these cards has a cost associated with their position. After selecting an art card, you must pay its cost by placing an inspiration token on each of the cards to its left. If you do not have enough inspiration tokens, you may not select that card. Any tokens on the card you have selected are kept for future turns. The far left card costs no inspiration tokens to take. If you have 3 or more art cards, you may choose to take a painting. Select 3 of your art cards, arrange them in any order, and then score them by comparing the visible icons on your painting to the scoring conditions. Once all players have made 3 paintings, the game ends. The player with the most points wins. And it is that simple, right? Right? Now, the publisher's description did a great job on giving you the roundabout of everything about this game and what you're doing and how to do it. Let's get to that concept of how do you win this game. And it's back to that points thing. And the condition cards are 4 cards that you select from a pile of cards that identify scoring conditions. Maybe there's pairs. Maybe there's a balance of one of each symbol. Maybe there's only a certain number, right? A minimalist, only a certain number of symbols. So there's all these different scoring conditions. And what happens is when you score your card, when you're painting, when you that's the great part. When I get into game systems, I'll talk about how smooth it is. But when you decide to make a painting, when you score it, you get a ribbon for it, right? Or in certain cases, you might get 2 ribbons if you've scored the maximum conditions of that card. Now, that to me, that's just great variability, because you have such a wide range of scoring conditions. Now, what I've learned playing this game is you cannot, like, if you're trying to be like an efficiency specialist and try to like get a little bit of everything, you're going to have a migraine. But we'll get to that later. So yeah, that's how you do it. Now, once you score for ribbons, the paintings that you've painted, at the end of the game, each of those criteria cards on the bottom has the victory point conditions in regards to if you have 1 ribbon, this is how many points you get. If you have 2 ribbons, this is like, if you have 1 ribbon, you get 2 points. If you have 2 ribbons, you get 5 points. If you have 3 ribbons, you get 9 points. That kind of scenario, right? And there are 4 different colors that are based on these different scoring conditions. So, and of course, there's a wild idea that in these icons, sometimes their icon is either replaced or paired up with a bonus scoring condition, a little gray ribbon where it says that if you have, let's say, one of the four qualities, the tone. If you have one of those, you get a gray ribbon. If you have two of those, you get two gray ribbons. Those things can be used as wild cards when you go into scoring situations. If you want, if I had 3 ribbons, I would get this big payout. Well, that gray ribbon can be a wild, and once used, it's used. So that's basically how you win the game and make your points. Now let's get straight to some opinions, because there are going to be some all over the board opinions wise. So I always start from the outside in, and the outside of the box is fantastic because it's made to look like a painting. Because on the backside, it looks like the backside of a what do they call it? A stretched canvas, right? Now, this is also unique. It's a game where instead of you pull the lid off the box, you slide a sleeved tray out. And the market board is a beautiful cloth board that rolls out. And that's where you put the see-through cards onto this market. And also on the top, there are positions and colors representing the 4 scoring conditions of that match. Now, the box is just so gorgeous to look at, and you definitely you're curious as to what's inside this thing. And so, let's get it. Once inside, let's talk about components. The best component it's like, let's just talk about the obvious. The see-through cards. First time I saw this, not played it, but first time I saw it was Mystic Vale. And then that same publishing company came out with a game. I can't remember the title, but Ryan had it and we played it. And I thought it was a great idea on this idea of building a card, right? In Mystic Vale, apparently you build these cards and they have multiple powers, and they're very asymmetrical in the way they can be designed. Now, I thought this was such a cool idea, implemented in such a unique theme where it made such logical sense, or it made such creative sense. Now, there's nothing. I'm going to jump into game systems right away, but I'll get there. So yes, the acetate cards are the feature of this thing, right? There are cardboard components, and they're great, right? The little punch outs for the ribbons and so on and so forth. I really like and appreciate the canvas board because it's just another quality of how unique this game is to separate itself from the others. So, okay, well, let's move on. We talked about the box. We talked about the art and the gorgeous components. And of course, that gorgeous art carries on into each individual card, because how it works is when you pick up this card, you're not just yes, you're looking for the pattern matching in relationship to the scoring conditions, but there's also a gorgeous creative process of when you're building this image. There's all these smaller, unique, beautifully illustrated objects and designs and individuals that become part of your picture. And what I love too is there's on each card there's a front tab and a left tab and a right tab above the icons that have title generation. So it's like a flip book. Depending on which one you reveal, the title of your painting, the 2-word title, can change. And again, such a beautiful quality to this idea of creating art and this ability to be part of that process. So that's components. I gushed all over the components. Yay, they're so awesome. Rulebook readability, layout, learning curve. Wow, for such a gorgeous game with stunning art, the game system, the simplicity in it, you either get a card from the market or you make a painting. And when you make a painting, you must use 3 cards, and you can only use 3 cards. and you have to layer them and put them in this sleeve, which is basically what holds your entire painting, and then you score it. That's as easy as it is. When you take a card from the market, as was beautifully described in the overview, in the farthest position from the deck is 0 cost. Anything you want to go up from there, you have to put tokens down in order to push your way up the market and grab cards ahead of everybody else. And of course, like when you do, you take one that has some on there, there's that economy that regenerates. So yeah, as far as the game system, game style, it's great. It's absolutely great. And it's very familiar to even the newest of gamers. So that's the best part about it. Unique mechanisms. Well, it's those cards and the sleeve and the layering and the way, not necessarily, because that's, I mean, people go, oh, that's not unique. But what's unique is the way that your brain goes into don't bother me lockdown in regards to focusing so much on where do I put these cards? How do I layer? What comes in front? How can I score to all these conditions? I turn into that whole beautiful mind thing with the imaginary formulas going off all over the place and trying to like map out what's the most efficient scoring. If I do this, I can score this much. And I'm not usually a person that gets tripped up, not necessarily tripped up, but put into paralysis in regards to the decision-making process as much as this game does. Now, it's not the same as Arboretum when you're trying to let go of that card that you discarded to your pile that is free for everybody to go and dumpster dive, villainous opponents. But that's that whole process of I can't decide. And finally, at least for me, it's one of those, okay, fine. I'll just put it, like an artist. Okay, I'm done painting. It's finished. Just take it away because I'll keep picking at it. And that's that thing is you could pick at moving cards around and this one and that. How does this one work? And how does that one work? And to me, it's so unique when there's a game that can put my my high-speed attention brain into like park and pay attention to one task. So beautiful. Now, the best part, does this all connect? I think it connects wonderfully. The idea that you're taking these beautifully created artistic components and composing, not necessarily being an artist, but you're composing an image to represent a final canvas. And the idea of having the options, like across the bottom, there are 5 color positions, and there are 4 elements plus the bonus element. So there's all this random order going on, and there's not necessarily, in most cases, there's only 2 color positions that have icons in them. So there might be times where you don't have a card that does, you have 5 cards, but not one of them has a second position icon. So there's a hole there, and it's just, there's sometimes where it's just painful. It's like there's something missing in my life. But that's how much this connects is you are focused on composing, creating the best. And again, if you're one of these efficiency victory points people, this one's going to make your brain go into the vice grip there for a little bit. So yeah, my conclusion is this game is definitely going to be part of my collection because it immediately appealed to my family. My wife loves this, and we've repeated plays already, which to me is I'm like I'm like running around the house, pumping the air, going yay! Right, get to play more board games. So that's for me. That's a win right there. Does it matter to me if this is a top shelf game? I could put it in its own shelf called "These are the ones my wife likes," and I get to play. So that's a unique, you know what? That's a unique shelf on its own. So I've just created a new one. Stuff my wife likes, and I get to play with, my wife and my kids. So that is definitely on that shelf for sure. If this is one of those games where you just have fun putting things together and creating these I was going to say payout objects, but these canvases that have to try and beneficially score with as many cards as you can, then this is totally the game for you. That's basically the gist of Canvas. Is it's gorgeous, it's as much brain crunch as you want to exert, and it is absolute fun and joy to play. And that was designed by Jeff Chin and Andrew Nerger, Road to Infamy Games. Now, let's get into the fast run, the Black Diamond course of ripping off 3 fast card games, because this is kind of the card game review moment. And let's have a quick look at our first one. Now, with these, before I get going, with these 3, I'm not going to go into as much depth because I'm going to tell you right now, these have been in my collection for a while and they're going to stay in my collection and they have a rightful place in my collection. So let's get that out of the way. Now, let's get to the first one, Anomia, or Anomia, depending on when you say it, designed by Andrew Ines and published by Anomia Press, I think part of Asmodee. Now, this is one of those Mensa titles. I'll read the description and I'll give you my opinion. So, Anomia plays off the fact that our minds are positively brimming with all sorts of random information, things to eat, pop, songs, websites, etc. Sure, under normal circumstances, it's easy to give an example of a frozen food or a dog breed, but you'll find that when your brain works a little differently under pressure. To play, draw and reveal a card from the center pile. Does the symbol on your card match one of another player's card? If so, you must quickly face off with the other player by giving an example of the person, place, or thing on their card before they can do the same for yours. If you blurt out a correct answer first, you win their card, and the drawing continues. Sounds simple, right? Wrong. Wild cards allow non-matching symbols to match, increasing the number of things to which you must pay attention. Cascading face-offs can occur when you hand over a lost card, thereby revealing a new top card on your play pile. Okay, so that's basically it. You keep revealing cards in front of people. There's going to be symbols on these cards, and there's going to be, like it said, person, place, or thing on these cards. When the symbols match, let's say I'm playing against Mel, my wife, and we have 2 matching symbols, I have to immediately look at her card, read what it is, and give an example of it before she looks at my card, reads what it is, and gives an example for it. I use this game a lot when I teach psychology, and I teach this idea of brain activity and process speed. And also that, without getting deep into psychology, that tip of the tongue syndrome, right? It's just like, it's right there. What's the word, right? I talk to them about that is typical for some people, but the moment you put pressure and some stress and some anxiety of a speed competition, then your recall narrows down to like a small ability, because that's where the fun of this game happens, is just watching people have like facial tics that have never popped up before pop up as they're trying to look up a word for an ice cream flavor. And they just sit there and shut down and twitch for a while. It's so much joy at the table as like a party game. But like I said, I use this as a specific teaching tool in my psychology class with my students. And they love it so much that even at lunchtime, they'll come in and they'll borrow it and they'll just play. And it's just so much, so much joy to hear the laughter fill the room with this game. So yeah, wonderful. That is Anomia or Anomia. Now the next one is Cockroach Poker, designed by Jacques Zymet. I'm so sorry if I mispronounced that. And published by Dragmager's Spiel. Now, Cockroach Poker came out in 2004, so this is an older card game. It plays 2 to 6 players, 20 minutes, ages 8 and up. The description and then the opinion and some giggles about what this game is about. So, Cockroach Poker is a reverse set collecting game that has nothing to do with poker except that the game is all about bluffing with cards that show cockroaches, rats, and stink bugs. The goal is to force another player to collect 4 of any one type of critter. The deck includes 64 cards with 8 copies of 8 types of critters. To set up the game, shuffle the deck and deal the cards out to the players. All of them. On a turn, a player takes 1 card from their hand, lays it face down on the table, slides it to a player of their choice, and declares a type of critter. Example, this is a stink bug. The player receives the card. The player receiving the card either accepts the card, says either true or false, then reveals the card. If the player is wrong in their claim, they keep the card on the table in front of them face up. If they are right, the player who gave them the card places it face up before them. That's one of the things that they can do when receiving a card. The other thing they can do is accept the card, peek at the card, then pass it face down to another player, either saying the original type of critter or saying a new type. This player again has the choice of, so the new player has the choice of accepting the card or passing it, unless the card has already been seen by all other players, in which case the player must take the first option of calling the bluff. Whoever lost a challenge and had to place the card before them on the table begins the next round. The game ends when a player has no cards to pass on their turn, or when a player has 4 cards of the same critter on the table in front of them. In either case, this player loses and everyone else wins. Okay, let's get some opinions about this game. Okay, 1, this is another game that I use in psychology in the idea of behaviorism and observing people's exterior behavior. The idea of like reading tells, poker tells, that micro expressions, that whole genre of psychology and behaviorism. And but the best part of this is how people transform when they're trying to sell you on anything. It makes me cry laughing sometimes, watching people completely change their decorum and behavior and vocal tone and body language. And it is the most amusing psychological contortion act I have ever seen. And it is, again, one of those games where there is just pure joy and riotous laughter that come off the table. And that is the best part of this game, is having just that much fun when you don't expect to. So yeah, there you go. Cockroach Poker. I encourage everybody to have a copy of this game. This is such a fun game. And of course, the best part for me, having a teenage daughter, is I get to ahead of time know where all her tells are, and to the point where she when we play this game, she won't make eye contact with me, and then I know where her little things are, and I'll call her on it, and she'll look at me and go, "What is this sorcery?" And I just smile and go, "Yeah, that's called good parenting." Now, this last one, I'm pretty sure, maybe I'm not sure. I mean, I know it's been talked about before on the podcast. I don't know if it's been reviewed before, but if it has, well, you know what? It's so cool that I'm going to review it, or it again, one more time. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about Point Salad, designed by Molly Johnson, Robert Melvin, and Sean Stankiewicz, and published by AEG, plain and simple. And so, point salad. I'll get to the description and then we'll get to some opinions because, again, good opinions. So, point salad is a fast and fun card drafting game for the whole family. There are over 100 ways to score points. Players may use a variety of strategies, and every game of point salad is unique. Cards come in 6 different types of veggies, and the back of each card has a different scoring method. So, for instance, one scoring method may award 2 points for every carrot you have, but deduct a point for every onion. By drafting combinations of veggies and point cards that work for your strategy, you can amass the most points and win. That is pretty much it. It is set up in a kind of tableau, not tableau, but like a card market where there's 3 rows, and on the top of the row is your deck of cards with the backs showing one of these scoring conditions, and then below it are 2 flipped cards which represent the veggies. And so you'll have, three columns, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cards in this market. You are able to either on your turn take 1 card of the scoring condition or 2 vegetable cards. Now, when the cards are taken from the market, they're replenished by the deck at the top of its row. And if that row ever depletes, you basically go to the other decks, try to balance another 3 even piles, and then continue the process. The game ends when everything's gone. This game plays, well, let's see what the designer says. This is 15 to 30 minutes. And they're absolutely right. If you love set collecting games and you love dynamic scoring conditions, this is totally the game that should be in your collection. First of all, again, this is on the My Family Loves This game shelf. And it's one of those games that, first of all, being teachers, as a parent, my wife and I are both teachers, and we always love to have the ability for our kids to work on their math. And this game does this hidden underneath scoring your points for your garden. I've never seen my daughter so eagerly put columns of numbers together in order to beat daddy. I love this game for that. Yay, thank you. But yeah, heat your veggies, do your math. But yeah, I super enjoy this game too because of the idea that there's 100 ways to score points. And every game, you don't ever feel like you've been there before in regards to, I've done this pattern before. No, I've yet to recognize that. So yeah, fantastic game. Absolutely. This is a must-have game in your collection. So that, once again, is Point Salad, designed by Molly Johnson, Robert Melvin, and Sean Stankiewicz, and published by AEG. We're at that point where I'm saying thank you so much for listening. And that's been the fastest, at least for me, review of 4 card games. And so, that being said, I'm your host, Norm, and we'll catch you later. This has been an episode of Cardboard Conjecture, and you can find more about the podcast on Twitter at BCboardgamers, and you can find the podcast on YouTube by searching Cardboard Conjecture, and on Board Game Geek Guild number 4045. If you wish to contact the podcast, you can email norm@cardboardconjecture.com. Thanks, eh?